precisely to get away from that kind of authoritarian insanity, but apparently you can't escape it. Alex Berenson is one of the people in this country most fluent in the science behind this disease and our response to it. He's the author of Unreported Truths about COVID-19 and Lockdowns Part 2. We're happy to have him on tonight. Alex, thanks for coming on. I'm not going to ask you to comment on the social forces involved here. I want you to explain to our audience the science behind this. Is there justification for arresting a woman sitting with her family outdoors not wearing a mask?
No, of course there is not. Look, masks are at best marginally useful indoors in crowded settings, okay? And the evidence that people have tried to drum up in the last 6 months to suggest otherwise is almost embarrassingly weak. Okay, there's an open label study, essentially a study with no control arm that was done on Massachusetts healthcare workers a few months ago, and it showed that after these people were told to wear masks, infection rates went down in Massachusetts. Guess what? Infection rates went down in Massachusetts overall too. Okay, so that means nothing. There's a couple of studies. There's a study from a Starbucks in South Korea. There's a study of a couple of hairdressers in Missouri. It's a joke. The best evidence before this pandemic started, before March, which is when the science was not politicized, suggests that masks were broadly useless in the general population. To the extent they were useful, it would be for people who were actively infected and coughing, and to the extent that that made any difference, it was probably just as a signaling mechanism to show people, step away from me, I'm sick. Okay, so the evidence here is just beyond weak. What's happened, Tucker, is that masks have become a talisman. Okay, masks have become something that we use to show we're serious about this, and this is a problem, and lots of people are dying, and we're going to do something about it, and we can't do lockdowns anymore. I mean, even the Democratic governors have dropped lockdowns because they're so economically devastating. So they have to tell people to do something, and they tell them to wear masks. And the social pressure, I do want to talk about the social pressure a little bit because I think it's very important. A few weeks ago, I was in Walmart with my son, who's 4. Okay, a 4-year-old is essentially at 0.000 risk of anything happening with coronavirus. Little kids don't spread the coronavirus. He was not wearing a mask. I don't like him to wear a mask, although he's unfortunately had to wear one now that he goes to school. And a woman came up to me and she said, "Your son's not wearing a mask." And I said, "I know, he doesn't like them." And she said, "I'm going to go get a police officer." And she did. There was a police officer at the Walmart. Okay, so what do? I don't argue with the police. I tell him, tell my son to put on a mask. He puts it on. This is the sort of social pressure that we're engaged in right now, and it has real consequences. There are other, even more serious issues than masks coming. There are vaccines, there are test and trace, and how aggressively we're going to isolate people and quarantine them. There are hundreds of thousands of college students right now at no risk being essentially forced to not leave their dorms for no reason.
So a society that can behave this irrationally about masks, you're suggesting, could do things that are much worse than this, and you're concerned about it.
Yes, and what's interesting is that it's actually the Anglophone countries, it's the UK, it's the US, it's Canada and Australia and New Zealand that have taken the most irrational steps. Right now in Europe, they're done with lockdowns, and it's funny, the countries that we view as more bureaucratic and statist are the ones that are pushing back more and making more rational decisions than we are.
And it's not just on COVID. The Anglo world has gone insane, and historians will be able to untangle that riddle, but it clearly has. Alex Berenson, great to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.
We've got breaking news tonight. Reveal